Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You had a great time. You're back at the parking lot. You're talking bikes, tech, progression. The stoke is high. We love bikes. You love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Oh, man, I'm doing so good, Danny. Big news. Finally got my IBIS back. Oh, it has been so long. And
yes,
man, I'm just so grateful. And I have a little shout out I want to make. I want to shout out my buddy Terry he's one of my Patreon members on TrailSage. And I recently got a new Patreon member, David. And when I messaged David, he said that Terry had recommended the podcast, and David loves the podcast and was like, I've listened to so many episodes, I thought I'd join the Patreon. So shout out to Terry for recommending our podcast, and shout out to David for helping me out. I appreciate it.
Yes. So if you want to support TrailSage and his creative endeavors, and you love the TrailSage channel, then check out his Patreon and join the TrailSage tribe. For our listeners who maybe are just started listening, what happened to your bike that you're just getting it back? Let's just give a quick recap.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I took a massive fall on Carla, which is a really technical slab.
A large woman. What was your bike doing on Carla?
Yes.
Well, I never.
Yes.
Oh, these ladies again.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I took a massive fall and cracked the
Carla's
I guess
a
it would be the
slab.
seat stay. Carla is a slab.
Same bit. We're doing the same bit. We already did this.
We have to clarify. But
Yes,
the chain stay just completely snapped, and so had to take it in to get it repaired. That was the easiest thing because my bike is so old; they don't have that rear triangle piece anymore. So carbon repair was the way to go. And
carbon repair on your full suspension bike. And it took a while, but it looks really robust. It looks really smooth. Unless you're staring at it, you can't tell that it was ever damaged. I don't think, right? That's what my wife says about my face, by the way.
Oh, God. That's right. Yeah.
Unless you're staring at it, then no one can tell. And I'm like, well, stop staring now. You're making me self-conscious.
Yeah, the awkward thing was that I had gone to your face guy to fix my carbon repair. It's the same guy, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Which is why it cost you $75,000. I told you that was a bad move.
He does facial reconstruction and bike repair. Yeah, it's pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah, it was a buy one, get one, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. How about you, Danny?
Yeah, I'm having a great day. Absolutely. I've had a good week and a great day. Life is good. I'm looking forward to getting into it. And we're talking bikes. So today's a good day. Should we get into some listener comments? Because we got a lot. Listeners, thank you for commenting on the YouTube channel or writing in on Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail. The YouTube channel is really helpful because you can get a conversation going. Other people can comment on your comments. But it also does help the algorithm, so it gets us kind of in front of more people, more eyeballs, and we do appreciate that. And if you're not commenting and you're enjoying and you're listening and you're downloading, we appreciate that too. So thank you, gratitude. So we're talking about Ride and Laugh podcast number 20. Do we need advanced mountain bike features on the trail? Mm-hmm. And then that came with two hot takes. I'm going to move to the hot takes next because the hot takes also got a lot of comments and really interesting comments. So I'm going to start with, as far as the main podcast, do we need advanced mountain bike features on the trail? And that was when you were telling me about the rotator or the terror teeter or the table teeter. We haven't named it yet. We have to get back to Mount Penn and ride it when it's done and ready. Yeah. And you were lamenting the fact that you had gotten maybe a little bit too easy. And so that started off a really interesting conversation. And we got a lot of great feedback. A lot of people agreeing with you that it is nice to have harder features, but also people saying, well, but it's good to be able to have easier things as well. So there was both sides of the coin. So your buddy Brian on a bike had a very long comment, and I thought it was fantastic, really, really insightful, because he's a pro level rider from what you've told me and what I've seen.
Yeah, very
and
good.
And he also rides with a friend who he said is intermediate, and he rides with his wife, which is his channel.
Yes.
And right, that's B&E.
B&E MTB. Yeah.
B&E
Brian and Aaron.
MTB. Yeah, so you can see him kind of coaching his wife and his wife progressing. But so he was saying that there's different trails. He sees a video where there's like a gnarly feature, and he can't wait to ride it, and he gets a thrill out of finding those things and battling with them until he can clear them. And then he said there's been a few times when he's seen something and then he's gotten to it and he's a little disappointed because it doesn't look as gnarly as he thought, which I think is the opposite. I usually see something and I'm like, I see someone going around and I'm like, I can do that. Yes, and then I get to the trail and I'm like, oh, I'm not comfortable doing that at all.
Yeah, GoPro effect.
Yeah. Brian's the opposite. He gets there and he was like, oh, I thought that was supposed to be hard. I guess that's what makes you a pro rider versus, us amateur wannabes,
Yeah, right, exactly.
But he said, I also ride with intermediates and novices, and he sees how stoked they are to be able to work up to things and to be able to get over things themselves. And he made a lot of good points, but the last point of his that I pulled was that when he's trying something challenging, is it a pride thing? Is being one of the only people that can do that feature? How much does that get in the way? And my question to you is that the right reason? We talked about in a lot of the earlier pods doing things for the right reasons. I would argue that may not be the right reason. That could get you in a little bit of trouble.
Guilty as charged.
Totally guilty. Yeah, I can totally relate. Yeah.
Danny, it was the first thing I did when I saw when you told me about the rotating skinny, I was like, I want to be the first. Yeah. And actually, when Fred had pointed out that line, the loop, the D Snyder loop.
Yes.
And he said nobody had done it. And I was like, oh, I can be the first?
Oh, yeah.
I so guilty as charged. There is a level of like stoke there that I got to be the first to do that, that I know of. Who knows? Maybe somebody else had done that. Is that a good reason? No, probably not. But I'm guilty. I don't know what to say. I'm totally guilty of that. Absolutely.
How did you feel when you were the first one to do it?
It felt amazing. It felt really, really good. But I wasn't thinking about that when I was doing it. Like I thought about it before, right when he said it, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. The minute that I actually started doing that, all that went out the door because it's a really hard line. So then you're like, I have to focus. But the minute I finished, and we should describe this line. The D Snyder loop is basically two skinnies, and you kind of have to climb up onto this one. It's a really long, it's almost like 50 feet of a skinny. It's pretty high consequence in the sense that there's probably about 3 or 4 foot drop off on either side. So you really don't want to fall off this thing. So it's a very long amount of time to hold your focus. And then as soon as you finish that, you wrap around, you make a U-turn and come back down a different tree that definitely has some high consequence and a teeter-totter in it. So, man, the amount of focus required to do that whole line was tremendous, and it required just my whole brain space and physical space. But the feeling of finishing that, the accomplishment after that was just like that adrenaline just dump, and you're just like, we're all high-fiving and, so, but guilty as charged. I mean, I did get excited about being the first.
Yeah. But you knew that you had that. Like when the challenge was put out there that no one has done this, your thought was, I have this. I can do this 100%. So you didn't really, I don't even think you really took a chance. You know what I mean? Because you just knew that this is something that's in your wheelhouse. So
that's right.
Maybe it would be like one of our other friends who's really good at jumping, and someone, shows him a medium-sized jump and says, no one's done this before, and just like, I can do that. So yeah, that's a good point. Pride gets in there, and it feels good. It feels good to accomplish. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we've been talking about the last couple episodes, is that overcoming something challenging and adding to the stoke. So for a beginner, and there's other lines on Twisted Sister on that trail at Mount Penn, there's other skinnies that are lower consequence and that are easier.
That's right.
That, a beginner can absolutely feel really stoked. I'm comfortable. I got that one. It's low consequence, but some of them are pretty long, or some of them can be pretty difficult. And so you work your way up. And that's one of the great things about mountain biking. It's called progression.
Yeah. And that was our point of that whole episode, was that there are skinnies there for everyone. You had the low boy, which is very low consequence, and anyone can do them, up to this really difficult skinny, which, that's, I'm not going to say it's a double black, but it's certainly a black with consequence. And that is not meant for beginners. That is definitely an expert line. And I'm happy that exists. I'm happy that all those options exist. There are lines for beginners, intermediate, and expert. And that's what was getting me upset about the rotator being so wide, because now they kind of took the challenge out of that one.
I think when we're coming from the perspective of everything should be easier, are we coming from a little bit of a fear-based perspective for ourselves? Well, when I get to that, I'm not comfortable doing that. That's scary. I would want that to be easier. Well, yeah. So work on it, get better at it, and then it'll be easier. Practice the other skinnies. Ride the white line in the parking lot. Get your eyes up. Start getting comfortable doing those things, and then start working your way up, progressing up to the higher consequence things. Yeah. And include same thing with jumps. You got to put the work in a little bit. I talk about manifesting these things and visualizing these things, but part of that is putting action in. You have to.
That's right.
You have to do the work. You're not going to just wake up and be able to do it. You're going to be more motivated if you're visualizing. You might be more motivated, and you might feeling more comfortable. Okay, I'm visualizing leaving the jump lip perfectly, arcing through the air and landing, catching backside of the jump at perfect, and being in the air and being comfortable. I'm visualizing that, but then you have to go out and do it. You have to go out and practice it. And I think the visualization will really help you with that, but you still have to put the action in. You still have to go out and do it.
Yep. Wow. I mean, that was a good call by Brian, and guilty as charged.
It's a great comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good.
It's really, really insightful from someone who's a fantastic rider, rides with other level riders, also has done some trail building. He's got a lot in
coaching.
there. So I thought that was, and coaching. Yeah. And coaching. Okay. So then we had the two hot takes based off of that podcast. Are we oversimplifying mountain bike features? Is that fair? And the thumbnail said no more gap jumps, ? And so, that one really kind of isolated the tabletop versus gap jump question. When you were saying, well, is a higher consequence jump more fun when you clear it? And so Ben Spokes, MTB, our buddy Steve, who loves jumping. Jumping's his thing. And he said, I think, guess who is pretty qualified to talk about this one? This guy.
That guy.
And you know what? He is. He's an awesome jumper. And so he wrote, as far as bike parks, he's really glad that they're tabled, that they're big jumps and the huge jumps. And some of these bike parks, I know all over the country, have huge lines. We're starting to see in the Northeast, we're starting to see each bike park have like their own mega line,
Yes.
And I totally agree with Steve here that gap jumps are cool, but if I'm going to be practicing something, I want it on a tabletop.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
So then the other comment that I pulled was Nate Koyman, 7745.
Okay.
He was talking about tabletops versus gaps as well. And he said, is it possible that more people get hurt trying tabletop jumps because it seems safer, but they're doing something that's inherently dangerous? So it seems safer. People are sending it on tabletop jumps and getting hurt, whereas the same size gap jump is so obviously another level that those novices may not try that. And I just thought, that's a perspective I hadn't really thought about, because people do get hurt jumping all the time. And I wonder if it's on more tabletops than on gaps, because it might encourage someone who's not ready for it to send it. I don't know. I thought it was worth a conversation.
It's a really good point. Unfortunately, there's no there's no way to
Yeah.
get around that, because you
Right.
need the tabletop. And we should kind of describe what a tabletop is, by the way. A tabletop jump would be you have a entrance or the ramp in, and then you have an exit out, and the middle is filled in. So it looks like a table, and that's why they call it a tabletop, versus a gap jump, which would just have a takeoff and a landing, and then there's nothing in between. So the table makes it so that if you did not clear the jump, you can land safely on the top. And so most bike parks will have tabletops like all over, and you'll have an intermediate, even beginners will have a smaller tabletop, and they get progressively bigger and bigger and bigger. So they'll get taller and longer. And so it's
Right.
just, I see his point, but I just don't think there's a way around that, because
Yeah.
you need the table. You need the table. You absolutely do.
Oh, you absolutely do. You absolutely do. It's an interesting point. Maybe on the larger, higher consequence jumps, the gap, and you could argue that a gap is safer because it only encourages the expert or the people that absolutely know they can clear it. But to Steve's point, I want to be able to progress on those things. The first
That's
time
right.
that we rode Upper Empire at Blue Mountain, we just literally like slow rolled up the lip and then all the way across the tabletop, and then down. Like you're just like getting a feel for it. That's what beginner jumpers do, and that's
right.
if my daughter was like, I want to try jumping, and we went someplace that had a little tabletop, I would say, just roll over it. Just get a feel for rolling over it first, and then try to get a little bit of air, and then try to get a little bit more air, and and kind of take it from there. So the tabletop is really necessary, and I do appreciate when things are tabled. I know it's a lot more dirt, and a lot of people commented on that. Like it's just a lot more work. It's a lot more dirt to build a tabletop. Even Old Dominion at Mountain Creek, or Dominion, not Old Dominion. I think it's just Dominion.
Old Dominion. That's a college.
Well, yeah, but their Old Dominion is, and they're known for their gap jumps. I can't believe that. I can't believe you don't know. Even Old Dominion, even Harvard gap jumps. Okay, even Dominion at Mountain Creek, that's their big jump line, and they're tabletopped, but you don't really want to land on those tables. They're filled in, but they're not meant for landing in them. It's like in case of emergency, you can land here and not, have a horrible crash. But like the lip for the jump goes up over the table. The table's kind of sunken in. And then the landing lip is also kind of high. Because you case them all the time. I mean, you probably know.
Oh, yeah. I am very familiar with those. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you're very familiar with those tabletops. You stopped and had dinner on top of some of those tabletops. I think, right?
Fine dining, absolutely. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Those aren't actual tables. You're not actually supposed to stop there.
Yeah.
I think you're using the tabletop incorrectly, actually.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's talk about our rides. Next up, we always talk about our rides. So in the last week, we did get a couple of rides. So why don't you touch a little bit? You took the newly repaired Ibis to Mount Penn.
Yes.
And I would say the focus of that day really ended up being a skills clinic that you helped with Bamba. So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about your experience back on the full sus.
Yo, that Bamba skills clinic was awesome. And Bamba is a Berks area mountain bike association, but they are one of the groups that takes care of the trails at Mount Penn, which is our favorite local place to ride. And so they had reached out to me, and they were like, listen, we're doing a skills clinic. Would you come up and kind of do a little filming? And, I said, absolutely. Anything to help out that group was just fantastic. And man, it was so great to watch these guys and girls just progress. I mean, from the very first part, working through the basics, and then just at the end, just really doing an amazing job. And shout out to John Pachars, and then the other John, I forget what his last name, and Todd. Those guys absolutely put on a fantastic clinic. The riders were incredible, and we had a blast. We had an absolute blast. I love seeing that kind of stuff. I don't know. What did you take away from that clinic?
I thought it was cool. I mean, I thought it was awesome that, everyone, if you're a Bamba member, I think it was $50, and they spent like a big portion of the morning. It was multiple hours. They had cones set up. They were talking about body positioning and then going through different drills, and it seemed like it was really, really well done. It looked like everybody was having fun. They were showing them with cones, and then they were taking them out on the trail for a little bit and letting them apply. And what I thought was interesting was when they were asking everyone why they were there. Everyone was just like, I really like riding my bike on trails, and I want to do it safer. I want to have more fun. Yeah. A lot of people said, I'm just tired of falling. Like, I feel like I'm falling too much. And I think that's really common. I know when I started mountain biking, I fell all the time. I still kind of do.
I was about to say, wait a second.
Aren't you the guy who broke his face? Maybe I shouldn't bring it up. Yeah, but now I think I've said this before, and I think now we know why we're falling more than what's happening.
The big takeaway from me from that skills clinic was I forgot what it felt like to be a beginner. And we take a lot for granted. And watching that skills clinic reminded me, when I'm doing this podcast, be cognizant that other people that are listening might need explanation or might need a little bit more detail on what we're talking about. So that was really eye-opening for me to watch everyone struggle at the beginning, but then through proper instruction and coaching, just absolutely shred it by the end. It was really incredible to watch everyone progress in a very short amount of time. Like, it was a very short amount of time. I was blown away. So kudos to Bamba. Great job.
Yes. We're going to put a link to Bamba in the show notes on the YouTube for this episode. And so if you're a Bamba member, if you live in the area and you want to take the skills clinic, definitely check that out. If you're not a Bamba member, you can also do it. It's a little bit more expensive, but still probably very worthwhile, or just become a Bamba member. And let us know, have you done a skills clinic and how did it help? I would be really curious, like what an expert would tell us. Hey, do this, do that, try this. Like, was there a little tweak that could make you a little bit more comfortable on jumps, a little bit more competent, it's just.
Yeah. I would love to do a jumping clinic. That's where I would, if I had money, that's where I would spend it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I like it. So then, speaking of jumping, the other thing that we did this week, we just did this morning, we went to the Phoenixville bike park.
Yes.
And I talked about this place because I took my daughter Ella there a few weeks ago. That was my first time going there. I was blown away. It's a small little place, but it's got progressive jump trails and kind of skills trails. And when I went before, I did not really have time to play on the expert line all that much because I was really focused on coaching my daughter. But it was awesome. We had a great time. So today opened up and we had the time, and it was a nice day. And we said, hey, let's go to the Phoenixville bike park for a couple hours and then we'll get some breakfast. And that sounds like a good day. And it was a great day.
Yeah.
So what was your feeling today at the bike park? Phoenixville bike park.
What a great place. This was probably my second or third time there. And gosh, it's one of those things where I just wish that more townships and cities would adopt places like this, because that's what it's all about. You want to talk about progression? They have 3 lines: a beginner, intermediate, and expert. And my goodness, we met Alex, who, and he had never done a bike park or anything like that.
He had never been there
first
before.
time. That's right.
Yes.
This was his first time. I watched him go from the green, the blue, and then even to the expert within 2 hours. Unbelievable. Yeah. So cool. So cool. Yeah. So this is where it's at. I wish that more townships would adopt this kind of a thing, because basketball courts are cool, but they're a dime a dozen. Let's get some more bike parks. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then we were there for almost 2 hours, and towards the end, all these kids started showing up. They were, immediately just doing laps and sending it and looking good. And then the BMX dude came, Lucas came, and he was absolutely,
oh my gosh,
sending it like amazing. Yo. I had such jump envy. Unbelievable on a little BMX. So this is the place that a couple weeks ago when I mentioned it on the podcast and I said, would my dirt jumper be better than my aggressive hardtail? And we were like, called a dirt jumper. So I have this older specialized dirt jumper. It's a P3, which kind of feels more like a mountain bike. It has, instead of a BMX that has like the kind of tall handlebars, this has like regular handlebars, and it's got 26-inch wheels, which BMX are usually 20-inch, and it's got a little bit of front suspension. So
that's right.
For those crap moments. Those crap moments where you need just a little bit of suspension to kind of bail you out from a poor landing. So I brought the dirt jumper, which also has no clips. It has flat pedals, and we ride clips. And so the big question was, like, if we ride this thing, are we gonna stay attached to it? Because we're so used to jumping on clips.
Yes.
And so we both had a bunch of goes at it, and I was happy to say that I think we both acquitted ourselves quite well on the little old dirt jumper. Neither of us were comfortable full sending it on the last jump. The last jump is very sizable. Yeah. So what were your thoughts on your full sus and then switching over to the dirt jumper?
Yeah, first of all, I was happy to get some practice on the full sus because it had been, 4 months? I broke my bike in March. This is only my second ride. There was a little bit of like getting used to the bike again, learning how to ride it. So a place like this was great for that. I could ease myself into it. Regarding the DJ, the dirt jumper, that was really interesting because I often wonder if I rely on my clips. And what I found out was I don't. I didn't clear the big jumps, but that was just a question of more time. If I had more time, the more comfortable I would get. But there's a smaller tabletop on the blue line, and I cleared that no problem with technique. Compressed into the front of it. Yeah. As did you. So it was nice to know that even though we are clipped riders, we're doing things the right way. And just because you have clips does not mean that it's bad for you. As long as you have good technique is good technique. And that was very eye-opening for me. It's like, okay, you're doing it right.
I can get the air. I can get up. I'm just not comfortable that I'm going to get down in a safe way. So, starting to notice that, like, oh my gosh, if I push into this, like I don't even need all that much speed. Starting to get a little bit of that feel of what those real dirt jumpers know, which is, and then the guys that are able to do it all the time, that like Lucas said, he started doing that stuff when he was 12, and just like every summer, just every day, riding jumps, riding ramps, riding jumps, riding ramps, and so you start to develop that instinctive feel for, at this speed, I'm going to push into the jump this hard, and it's going to send me this high, and I'm going to arc it perfectly and land here. It's just like everything just kind of is in that internal calculator. But for you and I, there's no calculations being done. It's just like, this is scary. If I push this hard, like I'm learning what he learned at 48, what he was learning when he was 12. And
that's right.
It's hard. It's hard to learn at this age. So for our young listeners, the young riders out there, keep going, keep practicing, keep trying. Like if you have the time now is the time to just be able to put in those hours. You don't have a job, you don't have kids, you don't have anything to worry about. Do what you love and get really good at something. And so anytime I see these kids out here, they're not on their phones, they're not playing video games, they're out there practicing jumps, and they're going to be awesome at them. By the end of the summer, they're going to be awesome at them. By next year or the year after, they're going to be awesome at them. And they're out there, they're having fun, and they're progressing. So I think it's awesome.
Look, I would be remiss if we did not mention Dean, Chase, and Max, who were there. And they fit exactly what you were just talking about. These are young guys.
Exactly.
And they were absolutely fearless, just fearless, going at it. I don't think any of them were clipped. I think they were all on flats. So they're learning it the right way, which we've always said, learn on flats. And then, if you want to graduate the clips, absolutely. But these kids were absolutely sending it. And they were so talented. And just to be young again and to have that fearless attitude, shout out to those boys. Excellent job.
And on a nice day,
great to watch them.
A nice day, just like out there, just doing jumps and everything. And they were really, really, really nice young men. So
yes,
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, and same with Alex. Alex was a grown man, but out there trying new things. He hadn't jumped before, and so that's one of the cool things.
On that theme of progression, let's continue with the topic that we never got to finish last week, which is, why are we doing what we're doing? You had just talked about that massive jump at the end. I mean, that's a pretty sizable jump, and you could get hurt.
Why go for it?
Yeah. I mean, it's tabled. Yes, it's tabled, but I mean, there's a blue line right next to it that has much less consequence. Why are we doing these big jumps? And just to kind of recap all the things that we had talked about last week, if you hadn't watched or listened to, I said watch, if you haven't listened to that episode, we talked about you and I having a big injury, and coming back from that injury and still wanting to go through the progression of doing these big, crazy things. Most people, like when I talked to my buddy Anthony, who, doesn't mountain bike, and he was like, you were just hurt and now you're going and doing this again. And it's like, I can't wait. I can't wait to get back on the bike. The other things that we talked about was, how does it feel when you're in the flow of the ride and you're getting this, right? You have these high consequence moves, but when you're feeling it, like when you're feeling good on the trails and just entering this, into that flow state, and what does that feel like? We talked about chasing that next hit, right? Like, I brought up the example of doing that anthem drop, which was a drop that's at Mountain Creek. It's about 10 feet up, 14 out. As soon as I did that drop, I wasn't happy with having done that. I was like, okay, what's the next drop? Like, I mean, I shouldn't have said I wasn't happy. I was very happy that I did that drop. It was a big drop for me, but I instantly went into, okay, what's the next thing? I want to do the Covenant drop. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So
a lot of people talked about that in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. And we still didn't answer the question of, why are we doing this? And what's the right reason?
It's a complicated question.
It really, really is. Yeah.
I was thinking about it as I was heading into that final jump at the Phoenixville Bike Park, and thinking like, okay, I have to commit to this, and it's scary, but if I commit to it, I feel like I can clear it. I had the confidence, but it was overcoming that fear, not grabbing the brake lever, because I had done dozens of runs where I just grabbed the brake lever, landed on top of the table, grab the brake, table, brake, table. And then all of a sudden I'm heading towards it. And the 3 runs before that, I was like, I think I got it. If I just let go, I got it. If I let go, I got it. And there's this buildup of, I think I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And then more and more confidence. And then finally on the run before I finally got it, I was like, I can do it. I can do it. I'm going for it. And it feels so good. Overcoming obstacles, overcoming fear. We talked about it last week, overcoming that fear, knowing that the skills are in there, unlocking your skills, unlocking your potential. There's something universally just powerful about that. I got this. There's just something that the universe rewards us for overcoming obstacles, for not living in fear. But it's not doing something that's scary and not knowing the outcome. I knew if I did everything, I had the skills to do it. If I did everything right, I was going to do it safely. And it's still scary because I had never done it before. And it was scary every time because I'm not proficient enough at it. But each time I got this. And you know what? The time that I didn't do it right, I still landed it okay.
How about pushing the envelope even further, Danny? Talking about risk. There are 2 lines that come to mind for me that are infamous in the mountain bike world. And one of them is the white line in Sedona. And to describe this, it's basically, the reason why they call it the white line is because the way that the sediment rock has settled in Arizona that left a white, I guess it would be limestone or I don't know, but there's basically a different colored rock that kind of traverses this cliff face. If you slipped off of this, you're looking at 1,000 feet of just like death. And it's this thing that mountain bikers push themselves to do, and they take this all the way out. I don't know how long the trail is because I've never been there, but you see a lot of videos of people doing that. The other famous one is the Portal Trail, which again is a trail that goes along a cliff face.
Mag
and yes, and it is really scary. Would you do either one of those, and why?
Portal, yes. White line, I don't know about. Portal, yeah, I would do Portal Trail. There's parts in Portal where there's signs that say get off your bike and walk. People died here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I see like Remy Metallier walking his bike over that section, I'm walking my bike. So
that's right.
But yeah, there's very, very high consequence tech there. I've done high consequence tech in the desert and I like it. It's fun. Again, just like approaching that jump, the skills are in there. The skills are in there, and I feel confident doing that. The white line, and most mountain bikers, I think a lot of mountain bikers know what this is, but in Sedona, where they have this famous red rock, and it's on this cliff edge, and so you're riding along, and it's kind of like a skinny. Like you need to stay there on that line, and then the hard part is you need to go down the mountain a little bit and turn around. So you ride the white line, but then the real crux move is start heading down the mountain, stop, or have enough control to then turn and come back the other direction. So that's really scary. I know that I have been to Sedona because I have my place in Arizona. So I've done a couple day trips. I've been to Sedona. I've not looked at the white line, but I've done a little bit of riding there. It's really cool. You and I talked about getting there, and you asked me one time if I wanted to ride the white line. I said no, and you said you wanted to take a look at it, and I was like, oh no. that means I might end up on this thing. What's your opinion of it?
I have a double incentive is not the right word. What is the opposite of incentive? I am deathly afraid of heights. I am so afraid of heights. Anything over like 20 feet, I get, and
yeah, I wonder if that would activate, because I've never seen that activate for you on the trail.
That's right.
We've done high exposure trails, and it's never activated.
Yeah. Because number one, I do not like to be controlled by my fears. It's one of my big annoyances. And if I have a fear, I want to conquer it. I don't want to be controlled by that. So that's one. Two, when I'm in a situation where it's high risk, I'm not focusing on the risk. And we had talked about this on the skinny episode.
Yes, you did. Yes.
I don't think about what could go wrong. When I'm attacking a skinny, I don't think about, oh my gosh, I'm 8 foot up in the air. I think about, I need to be on this line. And that's all I'm focusing on. I don't think about
what's the best that can happen.
What's the best that can happen. And so when I look at the white line, when I look at Portal, even though those two things are really things that get me, even when just saying it right now, I get this like, oh, in my heart, that palpitations or whatever, because of how high we're talking. This isn't like 100 feet. This is like cliff face. It is really high up there. You will die. Like it is that dangerous.
You may die.
It is.
You may die. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And yet there's something in me that's like, first of all, you have the skill, right? The white line, I'm good at riding skinnies. That's one of my skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Assuming the traction's there, it's one of those things I'd like to try and push myself. Now, when I get there, I'll reassess.
No promises. No promises. Yeah.
That's right. What do we say? Couch muscles, right? It's easy for me to sit in this office chair right now and say, oh yeah, I'd totally do it. But when you get there, it could be totally different. The Portal Trail is the same thing. Actually, the Portal scares me more than the white line, because that is literally a cliff face. If you fell to I think it's the left. If you fell to the left of it, 1,000-foot drop, it's dunzos. That one scares me more. But again, when we rode that one trail in South Mountain, there's a tremendous amount of exposure on the right side. And I don't know what the name of that trail is, but it's on the way to, I think it's Bella Vista View. Am I saying that right? Bella Vista?
It's National Trail past the Buena Vista lookout.
Right before it, actually. So it's right before it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's right.
Before it, but there's another section right past it where there's a lot of exposure.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too.
I don't know if how much you were paying attention to that, but there's tremendous amount of exposure later on in that ride. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't. And that was the thing. Like, only looking at the GoPro footage afterwards, the POV afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do? But I didn't I didn't think about that. When I was on that trail, I was so focused and dialed on getting that line, especially because you said that that line was challenging, which,
Yeah.
again, is that another motivation? You know, when it was like, when you're like, oh, this is challenging, I was like, well, I want to do it. You know, it's just like,
you got it.
Yeah, let's do it. You know,
You got it. Yeah, that's a
I
tough
did.
climb.
I did
That's
get
a
it.
really,
Yeah.
really tough climb. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listeners, let us know. RideandLaugh1 at Gmail. Comment on the YouTube. Have you done White Line? Have you done Portal? What's your feeling on exposure? Do you want to do either of those trails, or what's another high consequence trail that maybe we haven't listed? I mean, there's all sorts of high consequence slabs and tech trails and jumps. I mean, there's all, so, you know, have you done any of these things? And I feel like if I'm going to go into those trails, if I'm going to go into Portal, or if I'm going to attempt White Line, I'm not going in with doubt. You have to clear the doubt from your mind.
Yes.
And I got this, and commit. If you listen to the audio of me at Gold Canyon doing Cajones Double Black Diamond Tack Trail for the first time, I'm saying to myself, commit, commit, commit. You got this. I got it. I got it. Commit, commit, commit. I'm just like, I'm not giving space for anything else to happen in my head. The skills are in there. And then when I'm starting to clear it, and you're getting into this flow of doing tough things, but the skills are in there, it feels so good. You're just doing something spectacular. Like, you know, we have our work lives, we have our regular lives. It's not very exciting a lot of times, but then we have this sport that's so unique. We're on the weekends, or on our ride day, or on a mountain bike vacation. We can go and do something extraordinary. We can go and fly our bikes through the air, or ride down super steep slabs. And something about this as mountain bikers just really just invigorates us. And working up to have the skill to be able to then go and do that and feel good about doing it. It's just unlocking something really powerful, that, you know, that we are unlimited, and that anything is possible. And believing that feels really good. And believe it, listeners. Believe it, Sage. Believe it, Dan. We are worthy. We are worthy of all good things. Good things happen to us. Skills are in there. Visualize it. Get comfortable with it. Make it happen. And it's awesome. It feels great.
Yeah. I want to say, you know, you briefly kind of touched on a point that I wanted to get into, which is how unique mountain biking is. You know, you think about all the other sports that are out there. Mountain biking is literally the choose your own adventure. The punishment that you inflict, the success that you achieve, everything is your choice. It's not like football or basketball where your opponent can dictate how successful or how much failure you receive. In mountain biking, it's on you. You make the choice. The power and control is in your hands. You know, if you put in the work and if you do the skills, it's up to you. Do you want to take on this massive risk? And the risk can be anywhere from, hey, listen, I'm just out for a cross-country ride on a green trail, or it could be Red Bull Rampage, which is the extreme end of the sport, which is so beyond anything that I can do that it doesn't even, I can't even watch those videos. They're so out of my range. But that's mountain biking. That from the simple rail trail all the way up to clearing, 100-foot gaps over the Grand Canyon. It's choose your own. Yeah. Even Evil Knievel style, right? But it's choose your own adventure. How much do you want to put in? How much do you want to do? And there's not many sports out there that are like this. The only one that can come to my mind is like rock climbing. That's the closest thing that I can think of, which it takes a tremendous amount of athletic skill. It takes a tremendous amount of brain power to be able to climb these massive cliff faces. And the range, right, of rock climbing. You have the very simple rock climbing, or bouldering or something like that, where it's low consequence. And then you have Alex Arnold, who did El Capitan without any ropes. Crazy, but there's so many extremes in between, and that's the closest thing that I can think of to mountain biking. What a great sport that we're in. It
is awesome. There's something for everyone. And from the beginners of the Bamba ride to,
Yes,
maybe
full
in a
circle.
few years, like some of those riders are going to say, I'm ready to start jumping, or I'm ready to start riding slabs. I want to try this rock garden. Yeah. And it starts getting through one rock garden that, I remember getting through like the first rock garden at French Creek, thinking I could never pedal through it. And then I pedaled through it and I was like, okay, now I'm ready for a bigger rock garden. That's progression. It's just part of our sport. And it's awesome. It's really hard to explain. That's why we titled the first part of this 2-part series. We titled it's a mountain bike thing, and non-riders think we're crazy. Non-riders don't understand it. It's really hard to explain to someone unless a rock climber, maybe they would get it. What about a trapeze artist?
Oh, are you clipped in?
Listeners, if you're in a circus, go ahead and write in. If you're part of the circus, we want to know if you're doing trapeze or trampoline or maybe taming lions or something like that.
Electric unicycle.
Yeah. Oh, the electric unicycle. Yeah. If you're a clown, no. Sage has a fear of clowns. Do you have a fear of clowns?
I do actually. Yes.
Heights and clowns. How cliche.
I got a question for you, Danny.
Oh,
I got a
please.
question for you. And we had just to go full circle again. You had brought up competitiveness and being the first. How much does competition play play a role in whether you do something? For instance, if you see me do a line and it's a dangerous line and no joke comes to mind, right? Because that's a pretty risky line. You fall off Cliff Clavin, which is the highest part of no joke. It's literally a cliff face that you have to go around. You could get seriously hurt. How much?
Yep. I think I broke my shin on there.
Yeah, you did. But how much does that play a part? Where if you see your riding buddy do something and it's in your wheelhouse, but how much does that play into it?
It's a really good question. It's a really good point. And it plays into, for me, more than I would like to admit. I would like to say that I'm a big enough person where it doesn't matter. I'm doing what I want to do. And I've had those moments, and I know you have also. I know we both have been at features where you've done something or I've done something, and we're just not feeling it today and not going to do it. And it's empowering because it's look, I'm not getting hurt on that today. I'm not feeling it and I'm not doing it. And anytime that we're riding with someone who says, no, I'm going to go around this one, we are, I mean, I'm over the top enthusiastic for that.
Yeah.
Yo, listen to your intuition, do absolutely, so I reward that kind of behavior in myself and in others. I want to reward, the behavior. But to your point, if you do something, especially if you tell me, then turn around and say, hey, you can do this, because, we know each other so well. But certainly if I see you do something, I want to do it. I mean, I was just kind of going crazy about the white line because I don't really want to do it. But if you do it, then maybe I would do it. So, I mean, I kind of walked into that one. Yeah, I mean, it does play a part. If you do it, or if I see other people doing it, it might give a little bit more confidence, or it might just give a little bit more motivation. As long as you can go in with that confidence, you don't want to go in blindly, unrealistically confident, where you're over your head. But if the motivation, if someone else motivates you to do something that is in your wheelhouse, but maybe is a little bit scary for you, and you do that for me on skinnies all the time, yo, you got this, you got this. And when we were doing that, the what do we call it? The next to the Sam Malone slab, there's the new line that has that really tiny skinny, that really narrow skinny that goes up onto the boulder. Yeah, do we name it Coach? Okay. Yeah. So I had never done that. I had never done that line before, and I was approaching it. That skinny is so narrow. I was just nervous, and you coached me through the coach line.
Coach. Yeah. Although that's a very low consequence thing, though, right? So it's easy to give you coaching and easy to talk you through that because there's no risk in terms of like, if you fell off the skinny, you're most likely not going to get that hurt. You know, in fact, there were a couple of bail points. So I'm not sure that that would be a great example, except that it is a good example of you and I coaching each other through things. Now, I do want to say there's a difference between doing the white line and the portal and doing a feature. You know, like there's that's two different risk things. You know, like if you're getting to a feature, you know, it's usually a move, right? It's usually a move or maybe a couple of moves. The trail, like a white line or the portal, is the whole thing is a move. That's just one long move. So the things that you could argue from a competitive standpoint, right? If I see you do something, I will want to attempt it. You can't attempt the white line. You can't attempt the portal trail.
Right.
It's impossible. Like you can get halfway down the portal and be like, I don't want to do this. No, you're committed. Like there's no turning around. There's none of that.
You could walk it.
Maybe. I don't even know if you could walk it, you know, especially with our cleats. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, that there's a huge difference there, right? Whereas if it's a feature, you can go up to it. You could do a run up. You say, oh, you know what? No, I'm not feeling it. Or you could turn around. There's less of a commitment level there. I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's a big difference between the white line and the portal versus a move or a jump, you know, that you can actually turn around and say, you know what? Yeah, this wasn't for me, or it's not.
Yeah. Sometimes you get into a line. And you have to complete the line. And there's several moves. Right. We joke about that on the trail, that I'm a one move guy sometimes, right? And then we get into a line where there's 3, 4, 5, 6 different moves. Listener, let us know what do you think? Do you get pressured into doing things? Or how good are you at listening to your intuition? I'm curious how other people feel about this. Are they listening to their intuition? Do they feel like they could do more? Like, listeners, do you feel like you could do more, but you're just a little bit scared? The skills are in there, but you're not really attempting? Or do you feel like I'm really good at listening to intuition? I think a lot of people are more scared than they need to be. I think a lot of us have more skill and have more potential than we realize. And maybe it's just riding with pads. You know, maybe it's putting on knee pads and elbow pads and a lightweight full face helmet to say, okay, now I'm comfortable doing this. And then see if you have the skills to do it, whether that be jumping or tack or something like that. Like something just to up your confidence a little bit. That's what's so great about following someone sometimes also, is that you can just say, okay, I know this person, you know, I understand their skill level, and they're going to show me the speed and the line. And so now you're going to follow. You know, sometimes some things you can't follow on, you know, that just depends on what the feature is. But, you know, getting a new bike or having the right bike, having your bike dialed in, having the right dropper post, like whatever you can do to give yourself some confidence. But, you know, obviously not false confidence, but to really unlock the skills that you have in there, or that you've been working on. If you're new, if you're a beginner and you're working on skills and there's something that you want to try, you know.
How much does fitness play into this? You know, that was a question that Anthony asked me that I
really good question.
I couldn't answer, especially with the advent of e-bikes. You know, and now a lot of things are open to a lot more people. You don't necessarily need to be fit to either get to these locations or to be able to do them. If there's a hard move that you have to make, now you have an engine, so to say, to help assist you. So it's not analog power anymore. How much does fitness play into risk? Do you need to be fit?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just because, I mean, you're talking about all sorts of different kinds of risks. So you have people that are, you know, doing shuttle runs or e-bike runs on jump lines. And, you know, those could be massively gapped jumps. But if they're competent at them, then it's not really risky. And it doesn't matter what their fitness is. You know, if you're riding through tack or like something like a portal trail, I wouldn't want to get tired on that trail. I mean, that portal trail, I think portal trail is they call it the Mag 7. I have not studied this, so listeners, feel free to correct me, but I believe it's the Mag 7, and I believe that portal trail is the 7th trail of those. Yeah. So there's 6 that you do first. So I think that's a long day in the saddle, and I would not want to get to that trail and be tired. And I wouldn't want to count on an e-bike. I don't know. I mean, I would, the battery could die, or I guess things can go wrong on a regular bike also. But I mean, we're kind of analog guys. So I do think that like going through tech, like you do want to be fit. Absolutely, you do want to be fit, and you want to be strong more than even just like the fitness, the cardiovascular fitness. You want to be strong. You want to be able to hold the bike steady and have a strong center of gravity and really stay centered in your bike. So like really strong core muscle. I mean, that's a big part of mountain biking. Is listeners do weight train. I mean. I think, and we talk about this on the fitness pod, and go back and listen, and we didn't get as much into strength as I think we could have, because strength is really important, and core strength is huge in mountain biking. I do a lot of core strength work.
I don't know how to answer this question. I asked it to you, and I don't know how to answer that question, except to say that if you watch the Red Bull Downhill Series, or you watch Red Bull Rampage, or you watch anything, all of those athletes at the top of their game doing the most dangerous, riskiest things are putting in the work. They are training their rear ends off. You watch that downhill race, and before they get to that starting line, what are they doing? They're warming up on a trainer. This isn't like I'm going to eat Cheetos and slam a beer and then go hit. These guys and girls are putting work 7 days a week, hours at a time, training their rear ends off. The question is, do you need to do that to do the things? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I can tell you that the people at the top of their game doing the most dangerous things, they are fit. They are
it's
very
not going to
fit.
hurt. It's not going to hurt. I mean, the more muscle you have, the faster you react, the stronger you react, the more resilient you are. Something goes wrong, you want that muscle to help. Even if you have to bail, it's going to prevent injury in a lot of cases, or work to do that. I think one of the reasons that both of us came back from injury so fast is that we, try to stay strong, and strength training and being fit and being healthy and trying to be lean and fuel right. That all goes into being healthy and balanced. So, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong doing that. And I think that if you're not fit and you're not eating well, and you're into a sport like mountain biking, then try it. Right? It's going to get better. Yeah. Everything feels better when you're fitter. I think everything's, just life appreciates that. Your body appreciates that. And so I think you're going to have more fun if you're fitter. Fitness is fun. It's work, but it's.
Yeah. Let me, I think I have, and the other thing that I was trying to equate to this topic was like, what is that feeling? If someone was to ask you, like, why are you doing this? And I was trying to think of like, what is that feeling that I'm chasing? And we had talked about the stoke levels and that. The closest thing that I could think of was a roller coaster. The difference between a roller coaster and mountain biking, by the way, is the safety, right? You are strapped in on a roller coaster, but that thrill is very similar. As it crests over the top, and then that like, and you're like, whoa, and you're just like, and that
you're
feeling,
not worried. You're not worried about falling out of the roller coaster.
You're not. You're
confident. But you're confident.
Oh, I see where you're going.
You're just having fun because you're confident that the roller coaster is going to stay on the tracks. And while it's thrilling, it's also safe. And I've said that to my wife before. I remember when we went to Mountain Creek and I had one of those kind of unlocked days where I started hitting the Dominion jumps and clearing a whole bunch of them. And then I did the big drop. I guess it's Covenant.
Covenant,
but
yes.
Anyways, just flowing with the conversation here. I had this day and my wife we had a lot going on in our lives. And before I left that morning, she was like, look, you cannot get hurt. Be safe. Be careful.
The worst thing to say. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then we get up there and I'm getting confident, and the confidence is building on itself, and it's building, and I hit this one drop and it was huge. And then I was like, I think I can do the bigger one. And I never had a doubt. It was scary, and I was breathing, and I was doing all that stuff. I was breathing hard, and I was like, okay, you got this. But everything felt really good. And I come home and I show her all these videos, and she was like, oh my God, like I'm happy for
What did
you,
we
but
talk
like,
about?
what are you doing? I just told you not to take any chances. And I was like, sweetie, I got to tell you, I was so confident. I never felt like anything was risky.
That's right.
And I did all these really dangerous looking things. And I just didn't feel like I was taking a risk. My confidence was so high. So when you're on the roller coaster and you know it's going to be safe, you're just enjoying the thrill of it.
Yeah.
And when you're doing these features and when you're doing these jumps and when you're doing these drops and you start hitting that level of competence, and that's what our brothers and sisters in the mountain bike world that love jumping are doing, right? They're not crashing on jumps. They're loving it. They're feeling great. They're on the roller coaster and they feel safe, but it's even more fun because you're in control. You're steering it.
Yeah. Let me close it out by saying that we are not advocating that you go and do anything extreme. What we're trying to explain is why we're doing those things. And if you are a person that's looking to progress, try to understand the why. Know the why and know your limits. You know, you can't just go and expect to do these massive jumps without putting in the work. This is something that we talked about earlier today in the podcast. You have to put in the work and know what your limits are. Surround yourself with good people that know you. Don't push yourself on a feature that you're not confident in getting. If you get to it and you're like, I don't know, well, that's a pretty good sign that you're not ready for it. You know, if you get to a feature, go ahead.
This is another fantastic analogy with mountain biking and the synergy of mountain biking and life, and one that we haven't addressed yet. But you're making a fantastic point. And I think really what you're saying is learn how to listen to your intuition. And in mountain biking, when you're approaching that really lippy jump and it seems too scary to go and just send it, then you're not ready. If you're scared, and then you're not ready. And so when I was at the bike park today, at Phoenixville Bike Park, and I started approaching that last jump, I cased it. And then I started to think, I think I can get this. And then it was, I know I can get this. And I got this. And so you need to get to that place. And so we don't want to override our intuition for the wrong reasons. We talked about that in some of the early podcasts that we did was, what if we're doing things for the wrong reasons? So you want to have the right reasons. We can get into that more later.
Yes.
And the same thing in life, when we can quiet our minds and we can listen to our intuition. And we have difficult decisions to make every day. We wake up and we have decisions to make. And if we can quiet our minds and know everything works out for me and what's the best that can happen, what do I want to do here? And when you start listening to your intuition and you start listening to your true self, then that's where the magic happens on the bike and in life. And it's awesome.
Well, before we go into gratitudes, let me just add one little thing. There's a difference between nervousness and scaredness, and you have to understand what that is. It's okay to feel nervous at the beginning of something. That's healthy and that's normal, and that's never going to go away. I still feel that nervousness when I get to something that I've never done before, but that's different from, is this over my head? I'm scared to do it. There's a difference. You have to learn what that difference is. So I just wanted to say that because I don't want people to think like, well, no, it's okay to feel a little bit of butterflies. That's normal.
Oh, yeah.
That's absolutely normal. Yeah. So,
and that's good. Yeah. If you're feeling the butterflies and then you overcome, that's where the stoke meter starts going off the charts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go into gratitudes and I'll start it off because I got to tell you, we talked about it earlier in this episode, and I just got to tell you about, I love you. That this my gratitude goes to you, Dan, because Dan has made the IBIS possible. You offered to pay for the IBIS because I don't have any money, and
abundance.
Yes, and I am so grateful to have that bike, and that wouldn't have been possible without you. So thank you to my buddy Dan for paying for the repair, but then also for Mainline Cycles for making that repair happen at a very discounted price, which, again, grateful. So thank you to Dan and Mainline Cycles. Both of you guys are just amazing. I love you, man, and thank you.
Yeah, dude, I'm happy to help, and I feel like we help friends out, and I want my abundance to be the abundance of my friends and family and everyone to the best for everyone involved. Everyone that listens to this, I want everyone to get something out of this. I want it to be successful for us. I want it to be successful for listeners. I want everyone to enjoy it, and just win-win situation. So. I appreciate that. I'm thrilled to get you back on your full suspension bike. I'm glad that I had the means to do it. My wife and I were happy to do that for you. That's from the Fields family. That's a Fields family gift.
Hey now. Thank you, Lauren. So, yes.
Yeah. My mountain bike gratitude of the week is I thought you were going to take it. So I'm glad you didn't, but it's the Phoenixville Bike Park. Oh. I just think that is such an awesome thing that the town of Phoenixville, which is a little town here in Pennsylvania, and having a place that's, for me, is like 20-25 minutes away, and be able to practice these jumps over and over, to be able to take my kid there and have her practice and really enjoy yourself. And then to see the people of all ages and, skill levels there, and trying things, progressing. And, at one point there was just like a nice group of people there. And people were meeting each other and riding and encouraging each other. And it's that mountain bike culture, and people were outside and they were doing things. I just think it's awesome. I think it's a home run by the town of Phoenixville. I'll put we'll put a link in the show notes of what it looks like. And you can look at, TrailSage has a video on the Phoenixville Bike Park. So check that out. What's the tip of the week, Sagey?
So tip of the week, man, I'm going to go full circle with everything, including the Phoenixville Bike Park, which you just mentioned, but then also with taking on risk or doing things that are maybe a little bit pushing your limits. And so one of the things that we talk about all the time, this is the number one tip on this podcast, I'm sure, is visualization. You and I talk about visualization all the time because it's so important. And for the longest time, I actually struggled with, how do I do that? We never actually got into that, which sounds silly. It's like, well, just visualize yourself. Well, for me, I didn't know how to do that. But when I was doing the jumps today, what I did was I imagined someone took a picture of me. And what did I look like in that picture? Where was my eyes pointed? What was my body position? Like all of those things. How did that picture look to me? And that to me was the perfect way to visualize things. I was like, oh, wow. And if it wasn't a picture, maybe it was a video. What did that video look like? How did I feel in that video? Was I smiling? Was I confident? You could see all those things in a picture and a video. So next time you're struggling with something and you're like, all right, let me try and visualize it. Just imagine someone's on the side and someone's taking a video or a picture of you. And what does that picture look like? That's your visualization. What do you think of that, Danny?
I like it. Hey, whatever works, but you have to really believe it. You have to really believe it. I'm good at jumping on my mountain bike. You say it, you believe it, you put it out in the universe, and you allow that to start coming to you. And that builds momentum that you're going to, okay, I feel a little bit more confident on this beginner jump, and then I'm starting to clear it. And then I feel more confident on this intermediate jump, and I'm starting to clear it, and I'm ready to, and then you're starting to unlock those things. And however you see yourself doing them, whatever that is, if it's from third person or first person, and the emotion, I love that you added the smile, because the emotion, how are you going to feel afterwards? How are you going to feel during it? It's just like, so stoked.
Love it, Danny.
Well, if you're still listening, you're definitely one of us. You're a mountain biker, and we appreciate you. Go ahead and set your podcast player for auto download. That's how the podcast gets credit. And rate and subscribe. So if you can give us 5 stars on whatever listener you're listening to, podcast player, that really helps. And then give us a thumbs up and subscribe on the YouTube. We appreciate all the comments, and we appreciate everyone listening, whether or not you comment or not. We certainly appreciate you. And we're having so much fun doing this. So gratitude to all of our listeners, and have a great week. Get out on your bikes, ride and laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.